Hello, welcome to another Becoming a Modern Man. We are playing Grishoalbrand once again, and this time we're running it up against 8 Rack, or as it is post War of the Spark with Davriel, 12 Rack, I guess. So I think in my last video I said that I wouldn't do any more post War of the Spark content, but I needed another video as it turned out, so this is one for you. So we are running up against 12 Rack, I guess. I'm not sure exactly on the numbers our opponents are running, but it is basically the Rack deck with the new Davriel Planeswalker, so you'll get to see that in action. So this is our opening hand. It's not bad, to be honest, but it doesn't actually have any way to draw any or dig any deeper. So depending on how fast our opponent is, that could be an issue. And obviously we don't have any way of pitching any of our cards into the graveyard at the minute to use Gorya's Vengeance, so we're kind of relying on Through the Breach. I took a risk keeping this. We've got Temple of Malice to scry one, so we can dig a little bit deeper and hopefully find something. I found Desperate Ritual, which I decided to keep on top on the basis that hopefully allows us to cast Through the Breach a turn earlier. Punt casts Swamp into Inquisition, taking Gorya's Vengeance. We just play a land for our following turn, and Inquisition's away the Ritual. Cast a Bajuka Bog, which is fine. It does look like we're going to be in a bit of trouble. It is rather problematic that our opponent is pitching cards from our hand, so I'm going to have to discard here. Decide to pitch the Shoal on the basis that we're probably looking to Through the Breach this Grishoalbrand. We draw a Worldspine Worm, so that gives an alternative reanimator target. Possibly the preferred one. So yeah, I'm going to pitch Grishoalbrand because that's a Gorya's Vengeance target in the graveyard, so it has some utility there, whereas Worldspine Worm will get shuffled away and be of no use to us. Put Raven's Crimes. So we are going to have to pitch the Worldspine Worm this time. And put place the Rack. And then -1 Davriel, so we end up empty-handed, which isn't great for us. Find Discovery Dispersal, hoping that digs into something. Obviously, ideally Gorya's Vengeance, which we can cast right now. We find Night's Whisper, which isn't bad. The only ways that actually we can draw additional cards off of a single spell. So that finds Grishoalbrand and Boborigmos, neither of which are great. That's Liliana of the Veil, although artwork seems to be glitching out a little bit. So we're going to pitch Boborigmos to that, and our opponent is just going to pass, not ticking down Davriel because it gets him some extra points of damage in. Find Simian's Spirit Guide, so we're just going to run that out here. It's not great, but we can actually kill one of their Planeswalkers with it, or force them to -2 the Liliana, so I think that works out at least somewhat well. So we're going to take 6 here, and yeah, it's our last possible turn to do anything, but fortunately we top deck the Gorya's Vengeance, and we can attack for 7 here. But we went down to 11 and then draw 7 cards, so funnily enough that's actually really good. Even though we're back down to the life we started with, drawing 7 cards puts our opponent in a pretty bad position because that's currently the only way they're damaging us is through the Rack and Davriel, hitting us for having 1 card in hand. And now we have 7 cards in hand, which opens up a way to win the game for us. But we're just going to pass with all 7 cards in our hand here. We could play a land, but I think it's better to have as many options as possible. So opponent's going to trigger Liliana. I did think about discarding Boborigmos, but I think it's better to pitch the land here, or the second Shoal, because we could actually activate Shoal and then cast Gorya's Vengeance for its... what's the word again? For its splice, so we can splice it onto the arcane spell that is Nourishing Shoal. Punt gets rid of Davriel to pitch a card again. I'm going to ditch Through the Breach this time because we're going to use Goryo's Vengeance to combo here. I suppose we could have afforded to pitch the Nourishing Shoal, but I'm keeping the Nourishing Shoal on the basis that when we start Grishoalbranding that we might need it to continue our combo. So Goryo's Vengeance, well, Nourishing Shoal splicing Goryo's Vengeance gets us back Grishoalbrand. Attack for 7, draw some more cards. Get to gain 11 life because we found Whirlspine Worm plus Nourishing Shoal. And here we just need 1 mana basically. So we're going to exile a Simian Spirit Guide, get Boborygamos back, and then we can deal the last 4 points of damage necessary by throwing lands at our opponent, which finishes up the game. So yeah, very tight game there. We managed to just about make it. Kind of fun how Grishoalbrand actually really works well against their deck, in that just drawing 7 cards is pretty good against a discard-based deck or the rack. So yeah, kind of a funny interaction all around, kind of interesting. So let's go to sideboarding. So in terms of sideboarding, we have got a few options. Chalice is one of the cards I'm looking at here. Obviously a lot of the discard spells are 1 mana, as is the rack, as is Shrieking Affliction, although we're not entirely sure whether they're running them or not. But yeah, a lot of their cards are 1 mana, so Chalice for 1 seems like it could be decent. Additionally, we've got Shattering Spree, which is a way of destroying the rack, but isn't terribly good, although I suppose they might have relics as well, which would make that slightly better. Engineered Explosives is okay, I guess. I guess we could set that for 1 and blow up the rack. So maybe that's better than Shattering Spree in this instance, perhaps. Though most of their other sort of permanents are 3 mana, so getting up to 6 is probably going to be a bit rough in this matchup. So I'm not sure how good that is. Maybe those. In terms of cards we want to get rid of, Lightning Axe doesn't really do a whole lot. They do have man lands, but I don't think it's probably going to be particularly useful. I don't think Collective Brutality is probably where we want to be either. We're certainly not going to be escalating because we don't want to be pitching additional cards unnecessarily. So that seems not great. Night's Whisper is good. As I say, it's one of the ways we can actually draw cards, so draw an additional card. So I think we definitely want to keep that in. I think I cut 1 copy of Through the Breach as well, just because it's going to be very difficult to have 2 cards in hand. It is one of our win conditions, but it does make life a bit rough. Kind of depends on what kind of graveyard hate they have, I suppose, as to how good that's going to be. But yeah, this matchup generally seems a bit rough, just because we do want to keep at least a certain number of cards in hand. But as I say, the sort of the saving grace of it is that if you do get Grishoalbrand into play, then you get to draw 7 cards, and that makes their life incredibly difficult. And also, top deck Goryo's Vengeance at any point in time is going to be pretty good, as long as they don't have too much graveyard hate. Okay, so here we are with game 2. This is our opening hand. It's okay. We've got Discovery Dispersal to dig us a little bit deeper. We've got Through the Breach with Grishoalbrand, so I suppose that is potentially just a win condition, or Through the Breach with Whirlspine Worm. So I think I end up keeping this, so I don't know, maybe. I mean, mulliganing's not great against a card, deck that's all about making you discard. So I think it's a reasonable keep. But Raven's Crimes is we're going to pitch one of these Whirlspine Worms. And then we're going to Discovery Dispersal. I didn't quite see what was there. I think the card... Oh, we'll see what we draw. So yeah, we sort of had Nourishing Shoal, and then our next draw was Discovery Dispersal. I wanted to keep Nourishing Shoal. It might have been the wrong thing to do, but I wanted to keep Nourishing Shoal because it discounts Through the Breach. So it's a bit like having a Simian Spirit Guide in our hand, in that we can make our Through the Breach cost 4 mana, and that seemed good. Maybe I should have bottomed the other Discovery Dispersal, but that does mean that we just don't have any further draw cards in our hand, which seemed bad to me. But as it turns out, our opponent's going to smallpox us, which is not great for us in terms of getting up to the mana we need for Through the Breach. And as I say, we're going to draw Discovery Dispersal, so maybe we should have bottomed that after all. Wrench Mines, so it's going to have to discard Through the Breach and Nourishing Shoal, given that it doesn't seem likely that that's the way this game's going to go, and I guess we're going to try and dig for Goryo's Vengeance. Pitch the Spirit Guide there. Discovery Dispersal is fine. Faithless Looting and another Discovery Dispersal. I'm going to put the looting in the graveyard. That might be the wrong thing to do, but at least it has flashback and gives me some value. And we can just keep this dispersal on top. I'm going to play the land because we're going to need a certain amount of mana to get things going for ourselves. So dispersal goes in the bin, put in place a rack, and another rack. So we're actually going to be taking 8 damage, I think. Yeah, Devil does 2, so we're taking 8 damage. We kind of need to play this land, so there's that, and then we're going to flash back Faithless Looting to see if there's any way we can get out of this, but yeah, unfortunately we weren't able to find the Goryo's Vengeance, and we didn't have the mana anyway, so yeah, we got fairly brutalised, and yeah, double rack plus Davriel, it's a whole lot of damage, and we couldn't really do much about that. As I say, we're just hoping to top deck the Goryo's Vengeance here, but unfortunately didn't manage to get there this time around. Okay, so here we have game 3 and the decider. So this is our opening hand. We've got Temple of Malice, Faithless Looting, Discovery Dispersal, Grishoalbrand, Simian Spirit Guide, and a Night's Whisper. I think this hand's pretty fine. I think we're going to get Scry, and obviously then we've potentially got a turn 2 kill. If we can find a Goryo's Vengeance, we could go Faithless Looting into Goryo's Vengeance. Well, I suppose we need to find a land and the Goryo's Vengeance, but I think it's fine. We've got ways to draw cards. Obviously, being light on lands is not ideal, particularly given that we know our opponent runs Smallpox, but I think this is keepable. And again, like I say, we don't really want to be mulliganing too hard. Unfortunately, as we didn't see it last game, but we are seeing it here, our opponent actually has Leyline of the Void and double Leyline of the Void at that. Not that we really have any answers to it. So that's going to make our life very hard, because we are going to have to Through the Breach to win, basically. So yeah, pretty rough. We actually Temple of Malice and see Goryo's Vengeance on top, which is pretty annoying given our hand as well, because as I say, we could have potentially just comboed off on turn 2 if it wasn't for the Leyline. So that's going to make our lives pretty tough. Raven's Crimes, as we are going to pitch the Simian Spirit Guide here. Going to Faithless Looting, just digging for a land. So just pitching whatever we can. Trying to keep Night's Whisper around. So we managed to get to 2 lands, but I think our opponent, yeah, follows it with a Smallpox. So it looks like we're going to have to pitch quite a lot of stuff. I Faithless Looting, don't find the land, unfortunately, so we're going to get rid of a Grishoalbrand and a Wolfspine Worm, and we're going to try and keep this Chalice around because it's hopefully going to be pretty good. I mean, it would have been nice to keep the Night's Whisper, but our opponent has a Funeral Charm to get the second card out of our hand. Fortunately, we draw a land rather than whiffing, because otherwise this Chalice probably would have been gone as well. Well, there's a reasonable chance, I suppose. Our opponent is down to 0 cards at this point. So we get the Chalice for 1, which is nice. It seems to have set back our opponent a little bit as well, so that's nice to see. Opponent tries to Raven's Crime for reasons unknown, but yeah, that gets countered, and then Wrench Mind gets our Desperate Ritual. We find Faithless Looting, but we can't cast it because of Chalice, which is kind of awkward, but I just feel like we needed to... we needed that. Discovery Dispersal finds Through the Breach. And something else, I'm not entirely sure what. Oh, Manamorphose and Through the Breach. So we're going to take through the breach, given that that's actually a win condition. But our opponent finds Liliana, which is going to make our life very rough. So we draw Nourishing Shoal, which is bad. Wrench Mind is going to get rid of both of our cards, and meanwhile our opponent's able to tick up Liliana, which makes life very difficult. We find Goryo's Vengeance, which isn't any good for us thanks to the ley lines through the breach, but then our opponent's going to make us separate all our permanents, basically making us choose Chalice or lands. I mean, it was kind of tempting to choose Chalice, but I think, well, actually, I probably would have chosen Chalice. I think I clicked the wrong button, but either way, things are not looking great for us, because our opponent is going to be able to keep this Liliana around, tick her up, and get back to 6. So I suppose probably the right thing to do was what we did. Shrieking Affliction comes down and the rack, so we're taking 6 points of damage a turn. We draw a Worldspine Worm, which isn't going to do us any good at all. And yeah, it's difficult to see how we're going to get out of this. I don't really know if we got any outs. Maybe if we'd brought in Engineered Explosive, we'd have an answer to some of this, but we're still in very rough shape, and Leyline is kicking us pretty hard. So yeah, this matchup is rough. I don't think it's one that we want to see very often. We did get to see in game 1 how we can just top deck a Goryo's Vengeance and win the game, so that's pretty nice. But obviously once they get their Graveyard Hate in, if they don't already have it main deck in the form of sort of Surgical Extraction, etc., then yeah, life becomes very, very difficult. And yeah, because we are kind of relying on having multiple cards in hand in order to combo off, it becomes extremely tricky to win. So this seems like a rough matchup for us, and doesn't seem like one that's very favourable for us, except in the sort of rare circumstances where they make us pitch Grishoalbrand into our Goryo's Vengeance, I guess. So there are incidental advantages that we might be able to get where they help us out by allowing us to pitch a card for free.